these restrictions are pretty restricting. What is your immediate plan to mitigate the impact of these new curbs being put in place by the U.S. government?
Well, we are working through it to determine what we have to do, what our priorities need to be, how it might affect our products. And that's going to be worked out over time. What's very clear, though, is that last year, Huawei bought over $12 billion worth of non-sensitive technology from American companies. Yesterday, the White House press secretary said this effort's going to help maintain the competitive advantage of the United States. I'd love to see the competitive advantage of the U.S. maintained, but blocking us will hurt the American semiconductor industry and hurt them permanently. And that's not going to help the competitiveness of the U.S.
Now, last year you had a gap of $12 billion in revenue. Fourth quarter growth was also impacted, and it's been more difficult for Huawei, quite frankly, to win contracts. How much of a gap do you expect to see going forward if these restrictions do indeed continue?
Well, we're not able to make an actual dollar amount prediction yet. We do know that we will work through it, and while there may be, or there will definitely be an impact, we're going to come out the other side. But if we're forced to not buy from American companies this non-sensitive technology, we'll go elsewhere and we won't come back, and the American jobs will be gone for good. And that effort of the U.S. to hurt China by hurting Huawei is going to cost American jobs, and it's not going to help America maintain its technological advantage in the world.
Now, Andy, as we've been speaking, U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross has been on Fox Business talking about Huawei, reiterating the U.S. position, saying that Huawei remains an espionage threat. What is your reaction to that?
Well, it's disappointing. There's certainly the United States and China are among 5 or 6 countries in the world that have the ability to virtually implant hardware and software. So we're asking for the opportunity to meet with the United States government to talk about proven mechanisms to address risk, the kind of mechanisms that need to be in place for our competitors as well, because the adversaries of the U.S. have the ability to hack into everybody's equipment. So we are willing to be as transparent or more transparent than any other company in the world. And in fact, we're ready to help address some of the larger malicious cyber activity efforts around the world as well, and to strengthen the efforts to protect intellectual property. We'd love to engage in those kinds of conversations with the U.S. government.
Meantime, even as much as you've been pushing back on some of these comments coming from U.S. officials, there are analysts and consultants out there that see both sides. Yesterday, I was speaking with Anya Manuel, a strategic consultant with a lot of expertise on U.S.-China relations. Take a listen to what she had to say about Huawei.
Huawei is a bad actor. There's a lot of intelligence suggesting that they're very close to the Chinese military and to Chinese intel. But this particular export controls that you just mentioned really seems designed to put Huawei out of business. So it is quite draconian.
And it seems like she can see two sides of the same coin. What's your reaction there?
Well, I think the effort to try to focus on what the facts are, what the impacts of this escalating effort by the US government to hurt China by hurting Huawei. And I think escalation is a terrible thing, and I hope there's no further escalation after this by the US or by China. But the US, we have to look at this and say, how can the US compete more effectively to maintain our advantage in innovation, which I'd love to see maintained? We need to have an effort not just to hurt Huawei. We need an effort to promote technology innovation in the United States. We need a private sector-led technology industrial strategy to drive greater progress, to bring the benefits of the technology to our people and organizations. That should be a major priority, and it doesn't seem to be.
Now, Huawei's rotating chair, Eric Xu, has warned of retaliation from China. And we've seen in state-run newspapers talk about the Chinese government putting U.S. companies like Qualcomm and Cisco on its own version of a Chinese blacklist. Do you think Huawei is starting a U.S.-China tech war or ratcheting it up?
Well, I think the U.S. is very concerned about the rise of China economically and militarily. They're very concerned about maintaining the innovation technology lead that the United States has. And frankly, the U.S. is afraid of China. And certainly the U.S. has to take the kind of precautions that are necessary to help make sure America is safe. But a key part of safety is having the technology innovation that we need. I certainly hope, and you mentioned the U.S. Action most recently, I certainly hope that China does not take any efforts against Apple or anybody else, that escalating will not do any good. We don't want to set off another 30 or 40-year period where the U.S. and China don't work together. Let's have the conversations now, have the governments have the conversations now to try to address these issues, and let us talk with the U.S. government about issues about how we can prove that neither our products nor our employees are subject to the undue influence of the China government, and we're prepared to do that.
Now, I'd love if you can get to give us some more detail about just how this is going to impact your business. Of course, you've got the chip, high silicon chip design arm. How much of your manufacturing will you not be able to accomplish because of these restrictions? How are you revising your smartphone shipment targets because of these restrictions?
Well, as you know, our rotating chair just gave some remarks Monday morning for the Huawei analyst session. And he indicated, and I don't have any updated information, of course, that we are examining exactly what happened and what's going to happen and what the consequences are. When we had the impact last year, because of the limitations on the ability of American companies to sell a Huawei, you mentioned the $12 billion figure, we had to go through and analyze our products, and it helped us get rid of older products, help us prioritize newer products, and we invested heavily in research and development so we can fill the gap. We're increasing our investment in research and development this year, but frankly, I'm sorry, I just don't know yet what the impact is going to be on our business or the different parts of our business.